Beautiful fruit tree. It's not a big fruit tree, quite slow growing. It's in the mangosteen family. The purple mangosteen won't grow in our climate.
Yeah.
It doesn't like the cold weather. And but this one here is very similar tasting to the purple mangosteen. It's a yellow one, about so big. It's called a cha-cha.
Okay.
And it likes some shade. That's why I planted it under the wattle. So from about 10 o'clock in the morning, it gets some shade, and it's looking quite happy. And here is some ginger. I'll just show you what it looks like. I'll just pull a bit out. So normally when it starts maturing, it makes a beautiful flower. And this is the ginger, but as you can see,
Yep.
it's not fully mature yet. It'll get a little bit fatter than that once the plant dies. So once the plant dies, all the goodness goes into the rhizome,
Yep.
and then a lot of these roots too will fall off very easily. That's a lot easier to harvest when the plant goes dormant.
Okay.
And so ginger loves shade.
Okay.
If you plant it in the sun, like I did the first time, it doesn't even poke out of the ground.
Okay.
And and this is the purple passion fruit. So this is how we harvest it. We just look on the ground every couple of days or so, and it's growing up the wattle tree. So passion fruit grow much better. It started growing on the fence,
Yeah.
but it'll grow. Any vine will grow better on a tree.
Okay.
And passion fruit is fine to grow on a tree because the fruits don't have to be harvested. They drop when they're ready. Where
Okay.
a choco, you really need to harvest it. So choco, for instance, will grow well on a tree too, but it's better to plant it on a low tree where you can reach. And this is another chop and drop, another plant to chop and drop, but it looks too beautiful at the moment to just harvest and mulch a fruit tree with it. And starting to make, this is the first time I've grown
Another
this,
pea plant.
this particular legume. It's similar to the pigeon pea. It's got the same growth sort of behaviour, a bit more compact, and probably even prettier flowers. And this is very exciting. This is a Rollinia, and it's got fruit already, and it's been planted out 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
And if you come, so Rollinia can fruit all year round. It always seems to have flowers. You already looked at the flowers?
Yeah.
Yep. And so this is turmeric, orange turmeric.
Sorry, I'll come over here. Orange turmeric,
So
yes.
This is
Oh my goodness, look at
this
that.
is a clump. That look, isn't it pretty?
Very amazing.
So the orange turmeric is more mild than the yellow one. The yellow one is a bit bitter. So turmeric again, similar to ginger, it does like a bit of shade, but it'll tolerate sun. It'll tolerate it. Doesn't love it,
Yeah.
but it'll tolerate it. And the same with turmeric. If you want to harvest it any time of year, you can harvest it for your own use. But if I was to sell it, like we used to sell it at the market, I used to wait till when the plant died, the same as ginger.
Okay.
And that I get the most value out of it. But that looks pretty mature now, and it always lasts longer as well.
Yeah.
When it's harvested at the right time.
Okay.
And then if you harvest it with the moon as well, that's supposed to help as well. On here's a bean, Madagascar bean. It's a very long-lasting bean.
Yeah.
And we had a crop months ago, and for a while through summer it didn't fruit, and now it's starting to fruit again. So there's the beans and the little flowers there,
Yep.
delicate little flowers. So that's a really good bean for cooking.
Okay.
Oh, I'll show you this cassava. Cassava is just an amazing food. I mentioned it before. it starts out with the cutting.
Yeah.
You just put one of these cuttings. Cassava is the hardiest plant. Every cutting that I've ever planted strikes. There's
Incredible.
never any failures.
Awesome.
So it's great for beginners because they get a lot of encouragement. They get 100% strike. And so Lindy's got some cuttings there ready. And this is what cassava looks like. You just peel that. It's got a thick skin that's quite easy to peel. That's just a baby one. And I'll show you this one here. What I've been doing is I started harvesting from there. So every time we want a root, there was roots like this all around.
Okay.
So you can see the amazing food value.
Yes.
And so we harvest one at a time, and this is the last one now. And this is enough to feed a family probably a couple of times.
There's a lot of food in there.
And it's,
Yeah,
delicious.
It's huge.
The only thing, it hasn't got a long shelf life.
Okay.
Lindy she's the expert on cooking. I don't do
So
much
with
cooking. Lindy can
cassava,
explain.
it has two skins, and the skin is poisonous.
Oh, okay.
So you cut it with a knife a long ways. Then you can see the two skins. And so then I get a spoon, and it comes off quite easily. So you got to make
Okay.
sure you get the brown skin and the white skin off.
Completely off.
Yeah.
Okay then.
And so then once you peel it,
Yeah.
if you don't use cassava within 2 days, it starts rotting grey. It rots from both ends really quickly within 2 days.
Okay.
So if you want it to last about 5 days, you peel it back to the white,
Yeah.
and then you've got to have it underwater in the fridge.
Okay.
And then it will last about 5 days.
Okay.
But otherwise, it only lasts 2 days before it starts rotting.
Okay. Probably means it's got very good food value because if it goes off that quickly, it must have many enzymes.
Yep.
Yeah, within it.
Yeah. So you can grate it and then mix it with vegetables and put it in the oven. It'll make like a quiche. And if you grate it and put sweet stuff with it, like honey, apple, sultanas, and put it in the oven in a dish, it will become like a cake because it's very,
Wow.
very high in starch.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the irrigation that we are using
Yeah.
in this garden, which is a drip line, and it's dripping at the moment.
Yep.
So there's every 400 centimeters, three or 400. I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether this one. They normally come in 300 or 400 spacing, and it's the most beautiful way to water. It doesn't compact the soil.
Yeah.
It soaks right in. There's no runoff,
Perfect.
and even if it's windy, doesn't get it all blown away like
Yeah.
some sprinklers. So that's that.
And you leave that on all the time?
I leave that on about 4 hours,
Okay.
hours at a time.
Okay.
But I always tune in. You know, if it's really dry, depending on the conditions, you know, I might leave it
Yeah.
longer,
Yes.
and I might water once a week, no more than once a week. And now coming to winter, I might water once every couple of weeks. But I always look at the plants. I wait until the plants ask me that if they need a drink.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, so it's not a good thing to plant a really high water requiring plant amongst plants that don't need much water, because
Okay.
then I would have to water the one
Of course.
I have to overwater.
Yeah.
So if something needs a lot of water, then it's best to plant it somewhere else.
Okay.
And this is another spinach, leaf ginseng it's called, or Chinese spinach.
Yep.
And that's a very succulent leaf, very tender to chew. Again, someone without teeth could chew that. And that is so hardy. You can propagate this. Every cutting will strike, and then it comes up from seed as well. So once you got one of these plants, it just keeps on coming up,
That's
either
fantastic.
from a branch that falls on the ground or seeds.
And you can eat the flowers as well.
Amazing.
And over here, we've got the same snake beans. We've got them getting protected by a new ant that we haven't seen before. Let's see if we can find it there. This big ant here is protecting the beans. on this side. You'll find one on every bean.
Yeah, amazing. There is one on every bean as well.
So if you want to
Incredible.
keep seeds of the beans, you have to wait till they dry out.
Okay.
So they've got to be at least this dry or more. So you can pick it at this stage and put it under cover. And then in a week or two, then you get the seeds out and store them in the refrigerator if possible.
Okay.
Any seeds that get stored in the refrigerator, they last a lot longer because they're not getting hot, cold every
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
And so they'll last a lot longer. Well, here's that big ant.
That's not a green ant. That's another kind of ant.
No, we don't even know what this one is yet. He just loves these beans on this side
Okay.
of the garden.
As you can see, Emma,
Yes.
by having a big diversity of plants, we find I always get excited when I start a new garden because I don't know what's going to come. So like Lindy just showed you, an ant that we haven't seen before, and already we've noticed so many different types of ants. When we first bought this block, it was lifeless. There was no earthworms. Like now, you can see there's earthworm castings on the ground, even where I haven't fertilized. So it's a great sign that life is coming in to the soil. So for me, if I walk anywhere, I can tell just by walking on the soil if it's really, really hard on the foot, it's compacted, there's not much life in it. But as soon as life starts coming in, so what I've done here to encourage worms, I actually brought them in. I brought many types of earthworms in. I introduced them myself, and also I introduced microbes. And the way I've introduced the microbes into the soil is from compost that I made myself. It's full of earthworms and full of microbes. And also, I have gone to the rainforest and harvested some material with mycelium and microbes. So to make sure that every type of beneficial microbe is here, I got it from my own system that I had established in 15 years, and I got some from nature, from virgin rainforest. So that's how I start my garden. And Linda, you wanna get that list of minerals? So I'll explain in a minute what we've actually the ingredients we put in here to get everything healthy. These are flowers that I just plant, marigolds. There's many different types of marigolds, and these are all seeds. So they're easy to. They've just been self-sown now. I love plants that are not perennial, the ones that just drop seeds and they just keep on doing their thing. So I really love that. Like I said, I don't like a lot of maintenance. So what I do is I go around and if a plant is growing somewhere where it's smothering something else, I might pull it out, or I might prune it, like this one's growing over that sunbung spinach. I might prune it a little bit. So that's about all I do. So the only work that I've been doing in this garden in the last few months is just now and again, just doing a little bit of pruning, observing. This is another citrus. It's a page mandarin, which is an early variety. Also a marcot that's been propagated from a marcot from our other property. So we've got 3 different types of mandarins. So we will have mandarins for about 4 or 5 months. And this is lemongrass. When it gets this big, what I normally do is cut it at ground level and use it for mulch. So I use it for chop and drop as well. So the sunbung spinach, as you can see there, it makes a good ground cover. So it's possible to have all edible ground covers.
That's incredible.
So a gardener is really, it's like painting a picture. There's not 2 people that would paint the same picture. So what I'm doing here is just showing my picture, and then somebody else can paint their picture. They can maybe borrow some ideas, but I think everyone should be artistic in painting their own picture. Whether there's gardening, whether it's landscaping, whether it's building. This is Jaboticaba. So that makes beautiful little black fruits on the stem. And this plant here has come up on its own. So it's a bonus. And it's attracting bees and wasps. It's attracting all sorts of things. So I'm leaving it. So
Beautiful flowers.
you can see that it's feeding something.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love to bring to the garden is this diversity of insects and birds, and that's the reason why I plant some native native trees as well. Because some native trees are particularly good for attracting butterflies and birds. And over here, I've planted 2 custard apples together. This one here it's called a sugar apple. It's the hardiest and the most reliable bearer in North Queensland. I haven't seen a custard apple like it, and it's pest free. So I planted that one, and then a Chinese lady gave me this one here that makes a red custard apple, and it looked like it was going to die in the pot. So I thought I'll plant it here. If it dies, it's not going to leave a space. You know, this one can grow, and if it survives, the 2 of them can grow together.
Good idea.
They can sort it out. So I've never tried that fruit, and you can see even the new growth is a bit reddish, and the stem's a bit reddish, and the fruit is just so red. I've only seen a photo of it, and the skin is red and the flesh is red.
Goodness.
So hopefully it'll taste as good as it looks.
Yeah.
And here's another, making the pineapple there. And this is a lime tree. And this is a great example of planting a big variety of plants to attract a variety of insects and birds. Because this is prickly, see, finches have built a nest there.
Incredible.
Finches love building on prickly bushes because I guess it protects them from predators.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and this tree has also been planted out 1.5 years, and look, the limes are coming on already. There's some. This is the West Indian lime. We've already harvested some. They turn yellow when they're ready. And this is a guava, a heavy bearer, a quick bearer. This one started fruiting when it was after 1 year of planting, and it's very resistant to fruit fly. Because guavas, it's a favourite food for a fruit fly.
Okay.
But this one here doesn't seem to get stung.
Brilliant.
And this is one fruit tree that is not happy. Not sure why. I've never planted this before. This is a big Jaboticaba, and yeah, I'm not sure why. Whether it doesn't like the climate, but it's not a happy tree. So normally when something's not happy, I investigate. I try and find out whether it's the pH is not right. Most of the time it's got to do with either pH or it could be quite a few things. One, pH is one. There's a few fruit trees that prefer slightly lower pH. The pH generally 6.5 is ideal for most things, but there's an odd fruit tree that if it's slightly higher, they just won't thrive. So it could be pH, it could be that it doesn't like the clay. Also, the other factor is at the moment it's in full sun. Maybe because I don't know anything about this tree, I've never grown it before, so I'll find what the problem is. You know, if I find out it doesn't like full sun, well, that's one reason. If the pH is not right, and also see if the clay, and if it doesn't like clay, I've got no option here. The only thing I can do is like raise the tree, take it out, put well-drained material and actually plant it higher off the ground. So that's one little thing that can be done. This is a type of, in the passion fruit family, called granadilla. They got the most amazing flowers. There's no flowers at the moment, but there's some fruits down here. So that's the,
Huge fruit.
that's the granadilla. That one there is, it's got a good form. This one's a bit misshapen because I think when it was small, it probably would have been stung by a fruit spotting bug.
Okay.
And that's why it's misshapen, but
Yeah.
it's still big, good. And this is a plant, Queensland arrowroot. It's a plant that I use for chop and drop. They were about this high only a few months ago, or a few weeks ago. And what I do is just put it under the fruit tree and use it as mulch. So every time it gets to a certain height, I just cut it at ground level, but it's edible as well.
Brilliant.
You can use the rhizomes, peel it and use it like a potato. And this is a soursop that's also 1.5 years old. And Lindy and I discovered some fruit and we were like yelling with joy the other day. Look, there's
Yeah.
a few fruits coming on already.
Wow, great.
So we're so excited that within a year and a half we already got quite a few fruit trees fruiting. And this one here is a bullock tart custard apple. There's also fruit.
How old is this tree?
This one's 1 year and a half.
So you got this block a year and a half. How long have you been planting here?
A year and a half is the first
It's
planting.
extraordinary how much you have going on and how big the plants are.
The first fruit is coming
Incredible,
on.
look at
So that's a bullock tart custard apple.
Wow.
It goes pink, the shape of a bullock tart and the size of a bullock tart when it's ready.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, this is the tool. This is the tool that I use for chop and drop. So when the Queensland arrowroot gets about this tall, I cut it at ground level like that. And sometimes I might cut them in half and then just throw it under the fruit tree like that.
Brilliant.
So it's the easiest way and the cheapest way to grow mulch. Grow it right next to the tree,
Fantastic.
and there's no fossil fuel been burnt, and not a lot of energy has been spent, and that part can be planted. So it just can be planted from a piece like this, and it just multiplies.
And that's arrowroot.
That's our
you're
Queensland.
using.
That's the Queensland one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's about it.
Fantastic.
We've done the rounds.
That's amazing, Michael. Thank you so much for showing
Did I
us all
show you
that.
this?
You
I
not
haven't
yet.
spoken about this yet. So is that good, that angle? Or?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. I can get that.
Okay. So you were interested before of what I've done to prepare this soil. The first thing I put on this soil was gypsum. Gypsum it improves clay. It opens it up. Actually, what it's supposed to do is bind particles together, because the clay has got very fine particles. So it binds together particles, and it makes it more like fine sand. And then water can penetrate easier into the soil. Oxygen as well. So on clay, the problem with clay is when it's compacted before it's improved, it's very little oxygen or water goes into it. But once the gypsum helps, let's say gypsum is a source of calcium, which vegetables and fruit trees are hungry for. They love calcium. And then the next thing that I put on the soil is cow manure, composted cow manure, and which is very cheap to buy here in Mareeba, and it's from the cattle sale yards. Crusher dust, I always love using crusher dust since I've been growing organically for the last 45 years. I've always used crusher dust because it's cheap material. So crusher dust deriving from basalt rock, is what I used for many years. Now I've used, sometimes I still use that, and sometimes I alternate with the Quenkin. There's another crusher dust called Quenkin crusher dust. It's very light and porous, but also comes from volcanic activity, and both products, it's got more than 70 trace minerals. So crusher dust only has to be applied to the soil once in a lifetime, I believe. If I put enough of it, like I did, I put a whole truckload in the gardens that we just seen, and when the house is finished, I'll fill up the rest of the grassed area with fruit and vegetables, so there'll be no lawn, and I'll use up another truckload of crusher dust. So my wife thinks I go overboard when I start a garden, but then within a couple of years the garden can look after itself. As you can see, this one here, everything's vigorous, there's a lot of life in the soil, there's still organic matter, and I intend to cover it all with ground covers. So whatever grows here now goes back into the soil, and this system, I believe, can look after itself after a couple of years. It can look after itself just with a bit of pruning mainly. The crusher dust, the gypsum, guano. Guano is an organic form of potassium, potash, and can come from, I haven't added any potassium here, but if we got a fireplace, and any ash, I will sprinkle it in the soil. So that's an organic form of potash, is ash. But the guano, a lot of the Australian soils are low in phosphorus. So one application of phosphorus, so what I do is I don't just use all those products every year. I'll check the health of the plants, and if they're looking happy and healthy, I don't do nothing. If they don't look healthy and happy, then I investigate and see what do they need.
That's great, Michael.
And then after you putting all those products just on the surface of the soil wasn't ploughed up or ripped up or anything like that, we put a layer of mulch on top of that. And I already mentioned that we added earthworms, microbes, the fungi. What else can I tell you? You got any questions?
I think you've covered pretty much most things. Yeah. I'm really impressed, just because I've always thought I would need more land than this to have enough food, but you've just shown us that you can do so much with just a small piece of land, just the quarter acre this is, isn't it? Which means that it's possible to do in almost all gardens. Most people can do this. It puts it in the reach of most people now.
I thought the same, and that's why we sold our house, first house that we built. Lindy and I, we built most of it ourselves, and because we didn't know this type of gardening, we hadn't discovered all these vegetables and fruits yet.
Yeah.
So we thought we needed more land.
Yeah.
And now we've come back to, because the smaller, the easier it is to look after, and the more productive it is.
Yes.
And the more environmentally friendly it is. All of that.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and I love the fact that you don't need a whole heap of, you don't need to do too much work. It maintains itself. I love that. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Lindy.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for showing us around today.